I think we'll get started. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Santi Karasami, and this is our session, five tips for your school to go Google. So I'm Santi, I'm from New York, and I run a consulting firm called Project Recess, where I partner with schools in the New York City Department of Education, and I help teachers and administrators and students use Google Apps or G Suite for Education to sort of enhance collaboration and communication in their classrooms. And one of the stellar schools that I work with is Middle School 217 in Queens. And so with me today are Patrick Burns and Ross Berman. Patrick is the principal and Ross is one of the teachers there. And I'll give it to you guys to introduce yourselves.
Go ahead, Ross.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ross Berman. I'm a math teacher and a Google education trainer from MS217 in Queens. I've been working with these guys for the past 4 or 5 years on implementing Google Apps in my classroom. And it's been a nice journey.
I'm Patrick Burns, principal at Middle School 217. And I have been working with Santi now and Ross, as they both said, for about 4 to 5 years. And I would agree. I think the journey has been very, very educational, ups and downs, some rocky points, but an amazing, amazing learning opportunity for all of us.
Great. So I'm going to share the screen now. We're going to be watching the slides for most of this presentation. So if anybody feels like they're going to miss our faces, feel free to take a screenshot, set it as a wallpaper, and we'll come back and we'll answer some questions. But I will switch the screen right now. And here we go.
Nice to see some people from the DOE have joined us as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Shout outs to Jojo and Michael in East Village. Okay. So let's get started. Top 5 tips for your school to go Google. Number 1, establish your expectations of your own teaching, right? So we're having a discussion about this, Patrick and Ross and myself. And, a good lesson is going to be a good lesson. Google is here to make it stronger, right? And so we want to ask ourselves certain questions before, you move forward with this initiative, because it's a pretty big initiative to bring Google to your school. It will completely change how students and teachers collaborate with each other. Right?
I agree. Santi, if I can jump in there.
Please.
I think, obviously, if you're looking to go Google in terms of your classrooms and you're hoping that your colleagues will take it on as part of their instructional strategies, I think the best way to lay the foundation of understanding around Google is to really start with the fact that it's just going to enhance your instruction. It's not necessarily something that you're going to look to and say it's going to change you from someone who is successful in doing your assessments or successful in doing questioning and discussion. It's going to enhance all of that. And that's really, I think when we think about teachers and those teachers that might be somewhat fearful of it, the best way to work and have that discussion is to say that this is something that's going to enhance what you're already doing. That's why I look at letter E there and says be realistic and frame Google as a tool to support your already strong lesson plan.
Absolutely. I think many people just have this idea in their head that Google is going to change everything. It's going to make everything better. Look at me, I'm using Google, I'm using technology. But I think it's important to remember that the end goal is instruction, solid lesson plans. And as you're saying, Google enhances that. It's not going to change it all the way.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously the technology and the ability to collaborate is going to raise the level of that instruction, but I think we're all stressing how important it is to just come in there knowing what your instructional techniques are and build from there. Don't go out looking to utilize Google for the first time if you're in terms of using Forms or Google Docs, if you're not already strong in those particular areas of assessment or collaborative instruction.
Absolutely. And being real, if the technology does fail, does the lesson stand up on its own?
Right. Always. That's always got to be the fallback plan.
Absolutely. Second one, in addition to that, establishing student expectations. Something I've seen in many schools is, yes, there's there's a lot of things to take into consideration when you're setting up Google Apps at your school or the G Suite at your school, such as, what do these student emails, how are they going to be formatted? What certain apps can we enable? The list goes on. But at the end of the day, let's not forget about like why we're using these tools in the first place. Let's focus on, the collaboration that the students can achieve, as well as with the teachers, and what does proper behavior look like. So let's not. I see a lot of schools sort of get wrapped up in the technical, but let's always remember to establish the student expectations as well.
It always comes back to the teaching and the learning. And Google Classroom will absolutely enhance those two aspects of what make a school successful. I agree 100%, but it's still always coming back to teaching and learning. Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, next slide. And yeah, in addition to that, let's focus on digital citizenship. So I work with a lot of teachers that are interested in, blocking particular websites. But the thing is, you don't want to get into this game of whack-a-mole, right? Because
I agree.
You can't block every website. You can't protect every kid from every harmful comment, unfortunately. But
I think, Santi, that what we've done at 217 is we've agreed with that, and we've said, listen, if we're going to be chasing after our students all day, every day, in terms of sites that they're going to, then that's all we're going to be doing, and that's a fruitless effort. It's very similar to just old-fashioned classroom management, and you start classroom management by building that trust factor with your students. The way you're going to get to digital citizenship is developing that trust factor with all of our students and understanding these are tools that you're going to be using when you're older. These are tools that prepare you for college. These are tools to prepare you for career. So if you're online and you're off on various websites messing around, then let's bring it all the way back to that discussion as to why are we using these tools, right? Good, strong lessons, good, strong learning opportunities are going to probably be your best avenue for keeping your students focused and developing in them that good digital citizenship.
Yeah, I think it's important too to always, I think teachers and others are very quick to say like, no, block websites, block this, I don't want them this, I don't want that. I think it's important to try to start from saying yes. And as everyone has been saying, to teach them the right thing to do. And one of the best quotes I've ever heard of, teachers always say, but they're going on different websites, they're doing this. And, when students had pen and paper, students would be writing notes to each other. Students would still doing appropriate things, and teachers didn't take away their pencils, didn't take away their notebooks. I think that's why it's important, we're teaching them the right thing instead of just blocking things from them. That's actually potentially more harmful to the students to say block websites and not teach them about it.
Absolutely. And it's 100% not effective. As a principal, I'm always thinking of what's the bottom line here fiscally as well. And it's not cost effective. You're going to be doing that all day, having to dedicate time and energy to that. So from a principal's perspective, that's then lost instructional time because you're just chasing after students, trying to block one website. And these are kids, right? These are adolescent, pre-adolescent students that are very, very good at figuring out other ways around whatever we try to put in front of them to block them from getting to those websites. So realistically, it's not even on the table for discussion as to blocking these kids from getting on those sites. It's more about having those discussions, having lessons around what is good digital citizenship, absolutely explicit instruction on that, and having those conversations consistently with the students as to why is it so important that we are good citizens in all respects, both online and offline.
And, if you are a school that are sort of pulling a lot of content from sites like YouTube, I think YouTube does a really great job policing the content already, and so I think most of the content on YouTube can be used for instruction. And yes, if we focus on if we change the conversation and we have the student focus on, what is good content and have them sort of, police it themselves. And I think that's starting from a better place.
And I see the question from Jojo in terms of convincing principals to invest in the Google environment. The very first place I guess there's numerous ways you can go at it, but the first place you can go is that it's a free tool, right? So principals are utilizing a lot of our dollars on buying various software partnerships, and they can be extremely expensive. And the problem is that those costs are year over year. They don't go away. Right? You go out, you go online, you purchase a partnership for $10,000, $20,000. Well, that cost is coming back at you again next year and the year after and the year after. And as a principal in New York City, I have to keep a very close eye on that bottom line. So the first place is that it's a free tool. But I guess even more importantly, Jojo, is inviting the principal into the classroom to view how you're utilizing these tools for instruction. And I get it. Principals, both new and old school, may have some misgivings initially about technology and how it's going to be used in the classroom. And is it going to enhance the lesson or distract from the lesson? But when we started our presentation, we talked about good, strong instruction. And if you're inviting your principal in to see good, strong instruction, and then they see that you're enhancing it through the use of Google Classroom applications, that's the first place to start, and opening up that classroom, then saying to the principal, listen, this is how you came in, you did your observation. We can easily tie all of the applications that I utilize today to the Danielson rubric in terms of assessment with forms, collaboration with questioning and discussion. Do you mind if I start inviting other teachers into my classroom to see how this is happening? And hopefully then it'll grow there quickly, organically, spreading out to the other teachers, becoming more and more interested in it. Back at 2017, at the very start of the year, we surveyed our teachers as to what professional learning opportunities they would be interested in this year. And Russ, if I'm correct, right, it was like 97% they wanted to learn more about Google Classroom. So we devoted a good deal of time, both during teacher preps voluntarily, and then during our after-school PLs, and all of the teachers signing up and making sure we were differentiating that professional learning was also really important to us, having various levels of opportunities for our teachers to learn about Google Apps.
Yes. So moving on, before we get to the next slide, I know there are some other people that joined us from all across the world. So a special shout out to our folks visiting us from, I think I saw Australia on there, Honduras, Mexico. Welcome to our session.
Albania too.
Albania.
Beautiful.
Yeah. All right, next slide. Getting the administrators on board, a very powerful thing. Ross and I are very fortunate to have our principal join us here.
And that's a Simpson, right? And there is a Mr. Burns. Is there Mr. Burns in The Simpsons? I think.
Absolutely.
Right? He's the owner of the power plant.
A little inside joke. Fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, in many places, change can start from the bottom up, right? Change can start from a teacher who's really interested in using Google Apps and, sort of like a spreading that message to the other teachers. But in many other places, change comes from, sort of the leadership and sort of offering these tools. So when you have administrative buy-in, it really makes the process much easier, and I'm just going to forward to the next slide real quickly. One of the ways you can sort of get buy-in is just talking about all the really great benefits that come with the G Suite, right? It's free, collaboration, privacy, you own your data, if anybody has a commercial @Gmail account, if you've ever been in a situation where you email somebody about, let's say, the Bahamas, and all of a sudden you see ads for the Bahamas showing up on the side, that doesn't happen with an education account. It's like a very clean, safe experience.
Yeah, I absolutely. And also in terms of looking for administration buy-in, teachers that are skilled in the use of some of these tools can model for their principals how these tools can also be utilized to ease some of the paperwork that they're currently challenged by on a daily basis. At 217, we started using forms to collect a great deal of our information, of point of contact with parents when they're coming in over the counter, to forms to set up Tuesday parent engagement opportunities from 2:30 to 3:30, to just collecting report cards back and just monitoring that. So I think when principals may not necessarily see the benefits initially, because they may not make those connections. Again, when we're thinking about our principals and we're thinking citywide, just really being mindful as to, was technology a part of their instructional practice when they were back in the classroom? And if it isn't or wasn't, then that's okay. And having that conversation around, look, here's some things that you might want to do with Google applications throughout the school building, not just in my classroom, that can really, really help to manage the workflow. And principals are always looking for ways to kind of help to manage that workflow and lessen the burden of paperwork.
Yeah, and I think as a teacher, everything goes back to those instructional goals. And, we have a principal who makes very clear every year what our school's goals are. And I really feel that, as a teacher, our job is to obviously meet those goals. And if I can use technology to simplify and be able to meet that goal in the easier way, when I show that to my administrators, is that here, I'm meeting your instructional goal, and it just so happens to be through the use of technology, and it's an easier way than, it's done before. I think that's also, a strong argument to say, I'm not doing something that's totally crazy and totally different. I'm meeting those goals that we have for instruction, and this is just so happened to be the way that I do it.
Yeah, exactly. And then celebrating that, right, guys?
Yes.
Making sure that we are celebrating the success that's happening in those classrooms, that teachers are taking chances and making it low stakes at first for teachers, that it's okay to not do this well the first time you're trying it, and making sure we're supporting them when they are. So when a teacher for the very first time is going to actually go live with this in their classroom, we're very aware that we need to have somebody there to support them. We celebrate what Ross does in his classroom, and then teachers go and visit Ross, and they start to see, making those connections as to how what they're doing in their classrooms can connect to what Ross is doing. And then when they say, hey, I'm going to give it a shot, we're making sure to have Ross or one of our other teachers that are rather strong in Google applications available. Or, and I think Santi has a slide on it, having students that are really strong in it in that classroom with the teacher. And going all the way back to one of our first slides around learning and teaching and trust. That's really where it all starts.
Okay. Moving on. Yes, that sort of dovetails nicely into this idea of professional development. So giving your teachers PD on hardware, that's one thing, but we also want to focus on the instructional side also, right? When you sort of give them these tools, you want to also provide detailed PD that goes into how can they use this with their lessons. Because if you don't give them that, it's sort of like giving them soup without a spoon. If anybody's ever seen the movie Coming to America, it's like, okay, guy walks into a restaurant, he wants the server to try his soup. The server's like, what's wrong with it? The guy says, nothing, just try the soup. And the server goes, okay, fine, where's the spoon? Aha, right? Try the hardware. How do you use it? Aha.
Yes,
so,
that's absolutely true.
Yes, so I provide a lot of PD at the school there on how to use Google Apps, but I'll also sit down with the teachers and sort of think about, what's the lesson you're trying to teach your students? What are the main ideas, and how can we tailor these tools to get those ideas across, right?
Yeah, one specific strategy we like to use with teachers is to say, come to the table with a colleague that's using Google applications and bring to that table your lesson plan. And let's just look at that lesson plan together and think some ideas. The Google application teacher can say, here, look, these are a couple of really quick, easy things that you can do in your classroom that would directly align to what you're currently doing on this lesson plan. And then teachers, so you're making those direct connections for teachers. You're taking away the fear of this technology and this abstract Google applications, and you're making it really concrete. This is exactly what you're going to be able to do today in your lesson using Google applications. For example, Google Forms as an entrance or entrance ticket or exit ticket, just purely for formative assessment purposes. It is so much easier to see that data. And again, with a teacher having 50 things to do a day, the 51st thing is not happening. But having Google Forms to enhance their assessments at the start or middle or end of a lesson and immediately get that feedback and immediately be able to regroup those students is something that, to our most experienced, meaning teachers that have been in the Department of Education for 25 years, they see that and they make that connection immediately and they say, I want to do that. Ross, show me how to do that piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Google Forms specifically, it's been amazing to see, how many teachers have started using that and coming up with different ways of doing it. I mean, I think it's important, to combine, as we were saying, to combine that hardware and instructional piece. Because if you just say, okay, here's how you use a Google Form, I've heard so many teachers say to me, all right, I know how to use a Google Form, now what?
Yep, right.
And, I said, okay, show me a lesson that you're doing. And I said, well, you could use a Google Form here, you could use one here, you could use one here. There's all these different things you could do. And I think everything goes back to that instructional focus, lesson plan. How are you using the technology to enhance your lesson? And I think that's a perfect example of it.
Yeah, and when we're thinking of professional learning, I do just want to bring it back again and stress how important it is to differentiate that professional learning, because if you have teachers in something that's way above what they're capable of doing at this moment, it's going to just scare the hell out of them, and they're not going to try it. Or if it's something that if they're sitting in a room with beginners, it can be very frustrating for teachers that really feel like, look, I need to move faster on this. So having that differentiated professional learning for the teachers is extremely important in all aspects of professional learning, but especially when you're thinking about going school-wide with Google.
Definitely. There's a question posted, actually two, and I'll try to sort of like reference these two. Somebody asked, how can big data help? I kind of want to reframe that and think, how can small data help? I think using Google Forms to get a snapshot of, like, for example, if we're talking about working with individual teachers that have different skill levels, we've done surveys where teachers will submit, how comfortable are they using these tools, and then we'll group them by, whether they feel like they're an expert or just a beginner. And yes,
in terms of instruction and big or more micro data, whatever we're looking at, when we're thinking about 217, our expectation is that teachers are consistently assessing their students, and they're using that data immediately to regroup and then differentiate their instruction. And that is possible without Google applications, but when you think about using Google applications for just that specific piece, it's just, you'll have that, and I'll take it to your aha. It'll take you to that aha moment where you say to yourself, wow, this is something that can save me a great deal of time in the classroom. I can see the data, because when the data comes off the forms and it's just in that really quick visual, right away, these 4 students aren't getting it, so I'm going to pull these 4 students immediately and allow the other students to work on that other tiered task that I have planned into my lesson. As Santi said, we're consistently pulling from our teachers' professional learning feedback, and you can do that with paper for sure. However, think of the amount of time that you will be spending just trying to sort that paper. I mean, I go to professional learning opportunities outside of 217, and I am amazed that we're still collecting exit evaluations at the end of each professional learning. And, no disrespect to people that are still doing it, but I just feel like we need some time with our families and friends. We need to be able to have some time back. And if you ask anybody that the number one challenge in education, it's almost always time and finding time to do what you want to do. Well, if you're looking to save some time, you have to be going Google or some type of application where you're pulling that data and being able to access it immediately.
Definitely.
I can say in my classroom, teachers, obviously data is always a question, and with the way I have it set up now, I have students working at their own pace where the students are getting feedback on their own. I have assessments where I'm getting feedback on what students are getting right or wrong. And I have students writing their own next steps where they're telling me in their own words how they feel about what they're getting right and wrong. And that all is data that happens almost instantly. And those little pieces of data help me so much in my classroom of, who's getting it wrong, who doesn't have confidence in what they're doing, who may be getting something right but feels like they're getting it wrong. And there's all these different little things that you could get, and it's data you get instantly, quickly, and you can make big decisions about your lesson based on it.
Definitely. So the next slide relates to PD, and we referenced it earlier, letting students lead PD. I think that's a really interesting way to sort of frame how we offer these tools to our students, because yes, you can partner with a professional, and teachers can lead PDs, and these are wonderful. In addition to that, having students talk about their personal experiences on how they use this with their own classwork, that can be pretty powerful as well. So I would say consider having students lead specific workshops.
Yeah, from a principal's perspective, it's always sustainability. When you're creating a partnership with a vendor that you are paying for, you're thinking long term, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to have this partnership for a finite time period, therefore I have to develop capacity in my school building. And there is no group more excited about technology and the use of technology in school than your students. So having them participate in professional learning opportunities that you're also providing for your teachers is a great strategy. Those students come out of there, and they're most often the most excited participants in that professional learning, and they're really excited about having the opportunity and their responsibility to go back and support their teachers.
There's nothing students love more than teaching their teacher something and helping out a teacher.
And I think also, right, Russ, I'm sorry, Russ, it goes to that bond, to that trust. And that, if you have established a really strong trusting environment in a school building, your test scores will go up. You will see that because the students will be much more willing to take risks in their classroom because of the trust. Taking risks means learning. Taking risks means making mistakes, and the teacher then being able to assist them in those areas.
Yes. So 3 minutes left. Last one, hardware. Okay. So choosing the right hardware and infrastructure as well is very important. You know, these are web-based tools, and we want to make sure that the tools work well. And at our school at 217 here in Queens, like we've been investing in Chromebooks. So we have about 300 or 400 Chromebooks, if not more. And we're just going to keep purchasing more because they work really well, and they're very inexpensive in comparison to other models of laptops. What's beautiful about these is that the student signs into them using their Google account, and all the work they do is saved to their Google Drive account, which is unlimited, right? And as well as the management can be done online of the Chromebooks. So it's a really great tool, and you know, a lot of teachers are really coming around to them.
Yeah, I think, you know, with technology and a lot of what we've been talking about, the idea is taking away barriers. You know, you want the smallest amount of issues as possible. Chromebooks, very simply, they work. They're easy for students to use. They don't break. Teachers, you know, like them. It just simplifies everything. It takes down a lot of the barriers for implementing this type of thing.
Yeah, they're cheap, but they work. So that's really cool. That's always a big plus. I think also with Chromebooks, much like the more expensive Apple books, you can close them and open them up, and boom, they're launching in right away. They don't crash, much like a lot of our laptop, the other types of vendors that are out there with laptops. And I also like the fact that they don't have as much hard drive capacity, if any, so that way we don't have to worry about cleaning them so often and getting whatever kids are saving down on them off of it. That might be slowing these tools down.
Definitely. So about 1 minute left. There's a great question from Lisa Betancourt. You guys mind if we take a question here?
Sure.
So she asks, what are all the ways we can convince all teachers that they play a role in teaching digital citizenship / literacy? Some may feel it's not their job. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think I would take it to, if you're interested in using technology in the classroom and you do not see the connection as a teacher to helping the students to understand the proper way to find information on the internet, or to understand why you're not going on sites that are that just truly are not for children, then you're not making the connection to how you're going to classroom manage your environment. If classroom management, which it is in New York City, is part of Domain 2 in the Danielson rubric, is part of what you're doing, I connect that when I do my observations to how are students behaving when they're utilizing these tools in the classroom. So I think you could probably say the quickest way to leverage it is through the observation process for an administrator to understand, okay, I'm going to utilize Domain 2 to incentivize the teachers in the classroom to teach digital literacy skills, because that's part of the classroom management.
Definitely. Ross, anything to?
I mean, I think for that, very simply, I would tell a teacher, like, you know, when you're looking for information, where do you go? You know, we all go on the computer, we all go on YouTube, we all go on websites. It's a part of our lives.
Right.
And, you know, we're teaching students to be citizens in the world. You can't just ignore technology. It's not something that's, you know, different than anything else. It's a part of the world. And, you know, it's more of a part of the world than a textbook is, or something like that. And, you know, that's our job. We have to teach it.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, I think the idea of fake news has been really big in the media. How can we distinguish what is real and what is made up? And so I think that's a big part of sort of digital citizenship and safety online. And, you know, as a teacher, I think that's incredibly important for us to instill in our students. Looks like we're at 7 o'clock. So we'll be mindful of everyone's time. Thank you for joining us in our session. If you'd like to keep the questions going, we'll be online, so please feel free to write them here. But we had some great questions. We want to thank everybody for coming out, especially our visitors from other countries as well.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Good night.